My mom is an elementary school teacher. My brother teaches special needs students in middle school. And I'm very close to hearing the concerns. And I think getting more active with local municipalities, local boards is great. I think with school choice, I don't think it fits for every state, but I've seen some frameworks here in Florida, and I'm kind of lumping charter schools and school choice in the same. So I'd be curious to know first, what are your thoughts if school choice and promoting charter schools could work on a state by state basis? Because, for example, where I'm from in Connecticut, I've seen it work more towards inequality than empowering teachers. But in Florida, specifically in Miami, I've seen it been more to empower teachers. My main question to you, Ryan, and to you as well, Mark, is about the contradiction I see with the defunding of these private institutions. I really like the JD Vance speech when he was in Europe talking about freedom of speech. And he said it in the Signal chat, that idea that what we're doing in Yemen is almost a contradiction to what we're doing. And to this, it follows the same theme to me. It's a contradiction to this theme of free speech. And I like the idea of, instead of defunding them, which sounds very reminiscent to other arguments I've heard, let's bring Charlie Kirk to these schools. Let's let them fight and argue and debate civilly like we do here on Two-Way instead of defunding. And if anything, I can see these private institutions as a way to replace some of the NIH funding and giving that some of that more back to the schools. But I rest my case. I'm really appreciate the work you do, Ryan, and curious to get your feedback.
Thanks. So
Thank you, Matt. Go ahead, Ryan. Yeah,
on
go
the
ahead.
school choice subject, what I would sit there and say is, I mean, school choice is in most states. There's some form of school choice, some form of voucher, some not vouchers, but some form of charter. In some states there are vouchers. What I find is that I'm not opposed to it, right? And if you are a parent in a bad district in like Harlem or Baltimore or wherever, and you're very active and you're desperate to get your kid out of either a violent or a bad school, by all means, you should have the access and the ability to do it. What I don't like that it's used for is two things. One, I think there's a worry and there's a concern with a lot of very good schools, and the fact that they're going to try to usher students in from bad areas to sit there and go to good schools and ruin good schools. Schools are very easy to be made bad and very hard to make good. The second thing is this is primarily with vouchers. There really has to be very strict constraints on vouchers. I've been to Florida schools that get vouchers, and some of them are very impressive and some are not impressive at all. They are legitimate babysitting programs. So my big fear is when you have these giant states like Texas going to a voucher system, which allegedly they are, and you're promising someone $6,000, $7,000, $10,000 a year government taxpayer subsidies to government money to sit there and educate a child. Well, then you can have a company come in, sit there and say, we're going to make a school. We're going to guaranteed income from the state government every single solitary year without any accreditation, without any sort of or guardrails around how they're teaching, or if it takes 5, 6 years sometimes for these failing schools to get shut down. So in that time period, you've lost kids whose parents really do mean well, a lot of immigrant parents, working class parents, and they send their kids to whatever the best condition was. If we had an excess of 1 million nuns in this country ready to teach handwriting and teach in the grammar schools, I'd be like, this is perfect. We don't. So I'm for it if there are the correct guardrails around it and around both vouchers and charter.
What do the guardrails look like?
Well, one, I think there's an accreditation program. Many schools are not properly accredited. So first and foremost, you have to
and that'd be a state function or a federal function?
State and local.
Okay.
I went to one school that wasn't accredited at all, and I was pretty shocked by what they were not teaching kids. It was a religious school, but it was still not accredited, and they were just completely missing certain subject matters from these kids' classrooms. But figuring out how an accreditation program that works is sit there and say you will teach certain subjects by this grade. You will sit there and you'll hit these certain marks. In many of these private schools and these voucher promoted schools, you don't have the same level of accreditation that you do in a public school or in a long-standing private school, a lot of Catholic and other private schools. That would be the first thing, and I would sit there and emphasize a commitment towards transparency. With these voucher programs, a lot of the time, the problem is that a student can be dismissed from a school that is using a voucher program without either cause, reason, and cannot apply to go back to it. So that has happened past. It's not a huge problem. It's happening every single solitary day. But that does happen. And no, it's not a federal accreditation. I think someone wrote those federals don't have accreditation. No, it's not a federal accreditation. It's a state accreditation. These are all state and local accreditations. So there'll be different things for different states and different programs. Either that or they hire an administrator with a career in education, something. But there's going to be a huge profit motive to the tune of hundreds of billions, if not $1 trillion in the education space with vouchers coming up soon. That has to be really, really, really well needled in order to sit there and try to get correct results we're going for.
Thank you for that, and your expertise here is manifest. Here's all I'll say. These are complicated issues. Kids should come first. Teachers' unions should not come first. And anyone who wants to criticize vouchers or Ryan's PAC or anyone else trying to make change in our education system has to own decades of failure of our students throughout the country, rural, urban, exurban. There's some good suburban schools, but not everywhere. It is one of the most embarrassing failures in American history. It continues apace, even though we spend a fortune. And if you're going to criticize change, every change is going to have some downsides. If you're going to criticize change, then you need to own the status quo. And you need to tell generations of children, past and to come, that we're going to continue to fail them because we don't want to make any changes. Seems pretty simple to me. And it is an embarrassment that the Republican Party at the local level has not figured out a way to win mayoral races where mayors control the schools in places they do, or enough school board races to try something different. Because how could any parent who's put a kid through failing schools think the status quo is good enough for the next generation of kids? It's inexplicable and embarrassing. And I don't think the solution that the public will support is doing it from Washington. I'm not here to be for or against closing down the Department of Education, but No Child Left Behind was going to be done from Washington. People rejected that in the end. So don't do it from Washington. Every governor has to do this. Every governor has to take responsibility for the schools in their state, including and especially the public schools, and say, well, most of what we're doing hasn't worked. So we need to do different stuff to see if we can better serve the kids here who deserve a chance to have a proper education.
I agree.
Thus concludes my editorial.
Can I add one positive thing? There are places that have dynamic public school changes. Mississippi, huge growth. Louisiana, big growth. And in Miami, where he was just coming from, we flipped their school board and they're doing classics in K-8 schools now. They're beginning that program this year. So change is possible at the local level if you fight for it hard enough.
Yeah, that's true, but for far too places.